You may begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest edition of our AdvocateHub class. Just want to say, firstly, apologies for a slight delay in time. My name is Sean Jago, and I work on the support team here at Untitled. Today, we are lucky to be joined by Katie Yeigh. Katie is a Customer Marketing Program Senior Specialist at Data.com, which is a division of Salesforce, and is also the administrator of the highly successful Data.com Ohana Hub. So today, Katie will be sharing her experiences on the topic of re-engagement, talking through how she got people engaged, how they lost them, how they got them back, and what they're doing to keep them. So there should be some very valuable information here for many of you joining us today. So I'm going to hand it over to Katie now.
Great. Thanks, Sean. So hi, everyone. Like Sean said, my name is Katie Yeigh, and I come from Salesforce. I actually think a lot of you are our customers looking through the list, which is wonderful. If you haven't heard of Salesforce before, it's a cloud computing company working on CRM management. And I work specifically for the Data.com division, which works on completing your customer data and making sure it's correct, because as some of us know, salespeople don't love entering data, so Data.com does that for them. The second point I'd like to include in my introduction is that my experience is primarily in community management. So before I came into becoming an AdvocateHub manager, I actually did community management. And I mention that because I think that we each have different experiences, and we may not have been doing advocate marketing specifically, but we may have been doing something that was really similar or that could have principles that could apply to it. So in my case, I rely a lot on the principles of community management, particularly just the way that people interact with one another, the way that people are motivated, and also the importance of competition. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. And finally, the last point here, as you see this lovely shining face from Career Builder, is that I am a huge believer in having customers tell stories. I think that they do such a wonderful job of it, much better than we as marketers or salespeople can ever do. So that's why I've decided to join the Data.com customer marketing team a couple of years ago. And let's talk a little bit about what that is. So I've included our team charter here, one, just to give you a little bit of background as to who I am and what I'm doing, but also because I think it's really important to note that when you're doing advocate marketing, or probably anything, we never do anything just for the sake of doing it. We don't engage our advocates just to have pretty engaged advocates number. Everything that we do ultimately ties back to our goals. So just a quick view of what those are. Our team manages references, both the list of people who are willing to chat with our prospects and organizing the actual calls. We manage testimonials, so whether that's in the form of slides or case studies or videos, just any time that our customers can tell a story. Next, sourcing event speakers at Dreamforce or other local events. Fortunately, Salesforce as a whole is very much in the same mind that I am, that customers can tell the best stories, so we always have a customer speaker at our events. And then finally, we manage a couple of advisory boards. So with those goals in mind, let's talk about engagement. As Sean mentioned, we're going to start with how we got them engaged, and then how we lost the engagement with a lot of our customers. Fortunately, then how we got them back and how we keep them engaged. So how we got them engaged. In a word, we use Dreamforce. Salesforce has this huge conference called Dreamforce, and we very intentionally did our hub launch and kind of our very first engagement campaign around this huge conference. And the reason is we wanted to have a compelling event that would be exciting for people, that they would want to be a part of already, and we could just take it to the next level. So if you think of re-engaging, it doesn't just have to be the first time. It can be any time you engage your advocate. Try to think of what's going on at your company and see how you might be able to kind of piggyback on that and really make that a sensational experience or something that will draw in your advocate. So our Dreamforce strategy was very simple. Make it the best Dreamforce ever. So super easy, right? Well, not so easy, but it could be pretty simple if we just broke it up into three main buckets. So the first part of our strategy was to make it a personal experience. Dreamforce is really huge, and unfortunately it can be easy to feel like just a face in the crowd. So we wanted to make our customers know that they were there as our guests, and we want it to be really special for them. So we kind of used our hub to be a little bit sneaky and to get to know our customers in different ways. And one example is this challenge here on the left. And we put out, Dreamforce is coming, where will you get your conference coffee fix? And so we asked them, where would they recommend going for coffee, and what would they get there. So from the one hand, it was a way just to get people talking. It's a very easy challenge to participate in. It wasn't something that would take a lot of time. It helped people, give advice to one another and get to know one another. But then on our end, it also allowed us to gather some intel so that when our top customers arrived at Dreamforce, we actually had a welcome basket waiting for them in their hotel, including, among other things, a gift card to their favorite coffee shop and a little handwritten note that said, enjoy that caramel latte there. We heard that you love it. Very cheap. It was like $5 or $10 for each one, but we got a ton of positive feedback on that. We had included some neat tech items that cost a ton of money, and nobody even mentioned those. They all just loved these kind of personal touches. The next part of Dreamforce was making it manageable. So again, huge conference. If you've ever been to Dreamforce or just really any conference that you haven't been to before that's really large, you know that it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So we tried to make it a little bit more bite-sized, partly by creating a community within the Ohana Hub that people could talk to one another and kind of feel like they knew someone out there. So we put out this challenge, what were you missing last year at Dreamforce? What did you forget to pack? And it was just one way that people could begin connecting with one another and just kind of say, oh, here's an example of something I forgot. Here's my Dreamforce story. And as they began doing that, they got to know one another. And then we also had challenges around events that they might want to go check out, the sessions that would be particularly interesting based on their role, so that it felt like something that they could tackle, that they could do. And then finally, make it fun and competitive. So we have a lot of salespeople in our hub, a lot of marketers, and then less or so from IT people and some sales ops people. But we did notice that they were very competitive, so we tried to tap into that. So along with all of this, this kind of engagement that we had around Dreamforce, we also included a contest component where the person who earned the most points during this certain contest period on Dreamforce type challenges got a prize. And if I do say so myself, it was a really cool prize. They got to go backstage and meet the the band who was playing the Dreamforce concert. What was really funny though, and what we didn't anticipate, is they got so into it and they really just wanted to beat one another. So we had this funny experience where two of our advocates just happened to be in the same place at the same time, recognized each other from the leaderboard, and they had this moment that was like, oh, you're William, oh, you're Dave. And they exchanged a few jabs, and it was, it was very fun. Well, at the end of the contest, Dave ended up winning. He never claimed his prize. He did not go backstage to meet the band. He really just wanted to beat William. So after that happened, we were very glad that we kind of took a bet on this competitive edge and used that to our advantage. So how'd it go? If you think back, you'll notice I don't have stats here about the level of engagement. It was good, but what was more important to me is that we ultimately tied it back to our team charter and those goals of having more references. So 44% increase in reference customers, 100% increase in the slides, and then some new media. So new customer speakers, new videos, new case studies. So not just more people, but more ways of telling the story. And we actually got to win the Inclusive Band Award that year. So it was really, really satisfying. And we're kind of thinking to ourselves, oh, we get this. We've got advocate marketing down, 6 months under our belt. We are, just so fabulous at this. But we rested on our laurels and we hit a dry patch. So that brings me to the next part of my presentation, how we lost our customers. They were still customers, but they weren't engaged anymore. So first, we had to kind of figure out what specifically had happened. And it all came down to we had bored them. Our hub became boring. And there are 4 specific points here. So first, there wasn't enough interaction in the hub, either with our team or between the advocates. They love chatting with each other and they love connecting with us on a personal level, and we're just not providing that in the hub anymore. Next, not enough levels. So I told you that our people are pretty competitive, and we didn't do a good job of kind of feeding into that spirit where they wanted to always be achieving something, always reaching something higher. We launched our hub, and Sean mentioned it's called the Data.com Ohana Hub. For those who haven't watched Lilo and Stitch a million times, it's a Hawaiian word for family. So our whole hub is based around this idea of family, but with a Hawaiian theme. Well, we had these levels. You started out as a kahuna, and you could raise through 4 levels until you were a big kahuna. Well, we found that after Dreamforce, a bunch of our advocates already had reached that big kahuna level. There was nothing left for them to strive for. So for the people who were motivated in that way, there was nothing left to be interesting them and kind of hook them in. Similarly, we didn't have enough badges. And this is something that honestly was, I would think, a very personal mistake on my side, because I don't think badges are cool. They're not interesting to me as an advocate. But how silly of me to think that that would mean they're not cool to anyone else. So as we kind of talk to our advocates, we learned that they really enjoy badges. Some of them want that way of achievement. So we knew that we needed to recognize their achievements through badges. And then finally, the simplest one but the biggest one, there were not enough challenges in our hub. Quite simply, we ran out. After Dreamforce, we did not have enough challenges in our hub to keep people interested. So we had people who would check back every day or every week. But if there's not something interesting when you check, you might check again or maybe one more time, but eventually you stop checking and you stop coming to the hub, and that's how we lost a lot of our advocates. So we're going through this huge dry patch. We knew we had to get them back. We decided to make it rain. So we launched our April Showers campaign with the goal of getting our advocates back in a way that they would stay with us. So the first part of this, before we ever went to our advocates, was just to create a hub or recreate something that they would want to be a part of. So starting in the top right corner, the simplest thing, again, but the biggest one, was just that we needed to have tons for them to do, lots of challenges. So as we were preparing this campaign, we put about 60 challenges in our hub. Before I go on and explain the rest of the campaign, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, how in the world did you come up with 60 challenges? That would be my first question. And the answer is that we went to our teams. So we found out that our product team was really eager to talk with our customers and to run surveys with them. We found out that our marketing team had just produced a ton of great ebooks and white papers that would teach them, and that they were doing webinars that they wanted our advocates not just to come to, but also to promote in social channels. So we kind of gathered together all these teams plus our own kind of creative, fun ideas, and it actually was not as hard as you'd expect to come up with 60 challenges. So don't be afraid to rely on your team. Next, we added a contest component since, even beyond that William and Dave story, all of our advocates were very, very excited about the contest. So what we did is we said, whoever earns the most points in this contest period will get those points doubled. So if you earned 1,000 points in the 2 weeks, you would get an additional bonus 1,000. So really, not a ton of output on our end, to be totally honest, but it was very engaging. Next, more badges and levels. So I mentioned these guys are competitive, and they also want to be recognized for their achievements. So we added an additional level on top. So instead of just getting to the big kahuna, they could eventually become the king kahuna, which actually no one has reached yet, and I'm very glad about that because I always want something to strive for. And then lots of badges. So we found that it was really fun to do badges for specific things. So like if you were a Dreamforce speaker, you got a specific badge for that. But then also for some ongoing things. So if you are somebody who takes reference calls, you would get a badge for the first one. But then also as you continue to do more reference calls, there were different levels of badges. So you would get the level 2 badge or the level 3 badge. So even within our badges, there were a system of levels. A question that I hear all the time and that I ask all the time is, how long did that take? And honestly, it did take probably a good 3-hour sit down to really map out all of these badges and create the badges and do all of that. But I would say that it's definitely worth it. It doesn't engage every single advocate, but for the ones who like badges, it's been a tremendous success in my eyes. And then finally, we added hidden Easter eggs throughout the hub for this campaign. I don't know about you guys, but we have this closet where swag just goes to die. After an event or after a campaign, sometimes we'll have like 5 umbrellas yet or 2 T-shirts, and really you can't do much with that except put it in your hub and make it kind of a fun little surprise. So throughout the campaign, we would have a challenge that said, the first 3 people who see this get an umbrella, and it was just kind of a fun little thing. And after we let our advocates know about that, we got some messages that were like, I can't stop checking back on the hub, I just have to know what's next. So it was just kind of a fun little surprise. Again, always looking for things that you can kind of be resourceful with and not spend a ton of budget, but it was fun and it was engaging and drew people in. So with all of this, we've laid the groundwork, we've created this hub that we hope at least that people will want to be a part of again. The next part is getting people there. So that we did have about 40 advocates who had still been engaged, and so for those people, it was as simple as notifying them of the contest. As far as they were concerned, it was just a contest. So we let them know about the rules and the fun things coming in the Easter eggs and brought them in that way. for a larger group of our advocates who we hadn't seen for at least 30 days, we launched this challenge. So it was actually a GIF. So you could see the rain falling on poor Dr. Who's face. And this went out to all of the advocates, again, who hadn't been engaged for at least 30 days. There were 3 really important components to this. The first was that it was a little bit sillier than what we'd done in the past. It used the video. It said, is it something you said, kind of a goofier way than just saying, why haven't you been in our hub? It also had an option where they could say why they haven't been in there. They could choose that they just had forgotten about it, they were no longer interested, or they were on a secret mission in the Antarctic. So first was that kind of fun aspect and really showing our personality. Second was that it included a feedback component. So we actually asked our advocates why they hadn't been in the hub. And we did this with a true listening ear. It wasn't just for the sake of putting a survey out there. We really wanted to know. A lot of what we found was what we already knew, that there just wasn't enough out there. But we also learned that there were different types of challenges that they wish they had seen, or they felt that the mix wasn't right. So we used that to really continue improving our hub. And the third part, again, it's always the simple detail that turns out to be the biggest thing. The third part was we sent a notification. Before, I'd been really nervous about sending notifications out because I didn't want to spam my advocates. I didn't want this to become something that was annoying in their inbox. But in this case, they weren't in the hub. They wouldn't see this fabulous, engaging challenge unless we let them know it was there. So we actually did send out an email notification to all of those people we wanted to re-engage. So how did we do? Well, pretty well. This is a graph of our engaged advocates, and you can kind of see there the Dreamforce logo for our first Dreamforce, definitely a spike there. You can see the very sad decline, and then the umbrella indicates the April Showers campaign, where it really started to pick up and we got our advocates back. So it did go pretty well. We were really pleased with the results. And then the important part, how we keep our advocates engaged. So at this point, if you kind of have in your mind, say it's like May, we have more batches, we have our new levels, we have this knowledge of the competitive spirit of our advocates and the fact that they want to connect with each other and with us. And we also have just this knowledge that we need to have more challenges overall. So we went into it, and we now have a rule that we put 3 to 4 challenges a week into our hub. I think that's actually what Intuitive recommends, and they'll give you a little pop-up if you don't do it at least that much. So that was kind of convenient. But there are a few specific methods that we use. So first, we discovered the value of a fun challenge. I mentioned that GIF and being a little bit silly was really a first for us. And that was a big learning point for me to know that fun challenges are actually worth it and can get somebody into a hub. This one here, you'll see it's for 250 points, which is actually quite a lot more than you would do these days. Now each of our fun challenges just a 5 or 25 points. But we do find that they're really fun, and if we let somebody know it's out there, especially if it has to do with sports, they will come to the hub. But they will not stay in the hub for something fun. Our advocates have told us that they don't want to waste our time, and that the reason that they enjoy our hub is because they feel like they learn something, they get something out of it, and it can be a little bit fun, but ultimately they feel like it's a very productive break in their day. So to get them to stay, we need something with substance. So this challenge is an example of something that we put up that we found was very engaging. And then ultimately it came from our customer success team saying to us, we hear that our customers don't know how to calculate the ROI of data.com. That's fair. That is a very serious question and something that I don't personally know how to answer. But hey, guess what? I know 100 people who would probably have a great answer to that question and be really eager to share it. So we put this challenge in our hub, and it achieved a few goals. First, our advocates got to share knowledge about something that they were experts in, and I think that can be extremely engaging. When you get to be the expert and share what you've learned and realize that time that you spent learning it was not wasted, that's a fabulous thing. Second, they learned from one another because we shared the answers with the advocates so they could see, oh, hey, maybe I was calculating the ROI of time saved, but I didn't even realize all these new prospects that were coming in. So kind of adding extra aspects to it. And third, we learned the answer to our question so we could share it with other customers. And ultimately this is all very engaging to our advocates, and this is the type of thing that people stick around for. And then the next thing is just let the advocates know it's there. Even the most engaging hub Hub is not engaging to anyone if they're not seeing it. So we have a rule that once a week we send out a notification about a new challenge that we have. We actually don't utilize the challenge digest. For us, it's more about just sending a notification about a single challenge. And I think that just helps us to feel like it's less of a marketing email and a more of, hey, Dave, you might be interested in this. So we vary it a lot. It's always a different time of day. It's never always on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock. A lot of variety there. And also, sometimes it's about a fun thing. Sometimes it's about a survey that we want them to take or an event that we'd like them to come to. So it's always different, so it's not something that's just automatically going to be deleted. So the last thing I'm going to mention here before we move over to some of the questions is a little bit of a plot twist. I talked about the boost that we got from the April Showers campaign and how we keep our advocates engaged. But if you really step back and look at this graph, you'll know that there are a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. And that ebb and flow is something that we're actually totally okay with. We want to maintain a base level of engagement. We know that we have probably 50 advocates who, in general, are always going to do the challenges that we put out there, and they're always there for whenever we need them. But I don't necessarily have on my goals for the year to have 95% engagement in the hub at all times. Instead, what we'd rather have is that kind of steady group of people who are there, and then also have them there for when we need them. So Dreamforce is a huge one for us. We need a ton of people for Dreamforce. We need them sharing our sessions. We need them speaking in our sessions. So around Dreamforce, you will see a peak because we put a ton of effort into it. But that valley right after Dreamforce is totally okay with us. We give them a break. We know they're still out there. We know that we can re-engage them. We still have an interesting hub, but we don't put all our effort into keeping every single person in there every single day. And I know, Sean, that we have a lot of questions that we want to get to, but I'm just going to answer a few that I saw coming in.
Yes.
So first, this is the actual number of engaged advocates. It's not a percentage. So in our hub, in the early days, we had about 100 people in there. Now we have closer to 200. So these aren't percentages. This is actually, 80 people were in our hub at Dreamforce. And then, so to give a scale of our hub, we have about 200 people in there now. Okay, so at this point, Sean, I'll pass it over to you because I know we had some questions come in through the community, so why don't we go ahead and go through those.
Okay, thanks for that, Katie. That was brilliant. Before we get into the questions, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to share your experiences with us today. It's brilliant, very insightful. I was especially taken by the asking other departments in your company for input to the challenges. Great advice, a great way to share the load and take some pressure off yourself. And as well, just reminding everyone that having enough depth in the hub, enough challenges, enough badges, etc. You can't really rest on your laurels. If you think the hub is doing well, you really have to keep on working, keep on spending a lot of time and putting a lot of thought into things. So just something to take away.
Yeah, but, if anybody can learn from my mistakes, I am all for it.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the questions now. We've taken these from the community post over the last week or so thanks for the people who've contributed there. We'll work through these, and then if we have some time at the end, we can maybe look at a couple more that come through while we're live. So we'll just get started. So Margot from Virgin Pulse, how do you decide when to reach out and try and re-engage a member after how much time of inactivity?
Sure. So our rule has been 30 days. If we don't hear from somebody at all within 30 days, we'll send them. It's actually that same challenge I showed you where it was raining on Doctor Who. And we'll send that out just to kind of poke, hey, are you still there? If they don't answer, though, we don't do it again until 90 days. So the way that we actually accomplish that is we've set up groups. One that says, I think it's dependent on behavior is the category it's under when you're setting up your group rules. So we have one for people who haven't engaged for 30 days and then one for 90 days. And so we have these challenges out just to kind of to get at them that way. The other thing, though, is, to my very last point about how we don't necessarily panic if we don't have everyone engaged, the time that I really put the most into it is when we have either a lot of events going on. So, seasonally, our second quarter is really, really big for us in terms of local events. So I would probably put more effort into it then. And then, of course, around, for us, Dreamforce, our biggest conference. So you can also kind of let your business dictate when you do that as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, next up, Alyssa from Dell says, what type of challenges result in the most engagement? So this is actually something that's talked about a lot here at Intuitive, like getting the right balance between like asks, fun, education. So it'd be interesting to hear your take on this.
And I know, Sean, that you guys recommend a 1/3 ask, 1/3 fun, 1/3 education, and we definitely subscribe to that as well. We try to keep a good balance there. Of course, the ask might take a lot longer than the fun one, but we do try to kind of mix that up in that way. I find that fun tends to get the most engagement from people who aren't in there every day. So I've relied a lot on fun as a re-engagement. I think I mentioned before, for whatever reason, sports are huge for our advocates. I did not see that coming. But whenever there's a big sports event like the World Series, if we do a challenge around like predicting who will win, that's always really fun. So I would say that's probably the most like one-time engagement. And then the most for continuing engagement, like if somebody's going to go in the hub and they're going to do 5 challenges, we actually, this is sort of a wild card, but we do a lot of educational challenges, more around growing your career. So it's not always just here's how you use data.com. Sometimes we'll put one in there about asking for a raise. How do you do that? How do you have difficult conversations with your manager? So those we've kind of categorized under education just because we simply don't have enough materials to achieve that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 if we don't source from other places. But we found that those have been very engaging.
Yeah. I think like even if it's not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, like you just don't want it straying too far from that sort of breakdown. You don't want something like 70% of your challenges are such and such. So just even keeping some sort of balance is good. And okay, next up is Davin from Intuit. He asks, what tools outside of Intuitive do you use to reach out to unengaged advocates?
So for this one, it's actually a very simple answer, and it's just email. One of my major philosophies that I subscribe to is that your advocates are a person, and I think a lot of us have come around to that, right? We know that our advocates are people; they're not just on a spreadsheet, and we want to treat them that way. But I think what we sometimes forget is that you're a person too, and they want to know that. So if there's somebody who has been a big advocate for us and we don't hear from them for a while, I'll just send them an email. Like just literally, no marketing automation. Like I just send them an email or pick up the phone. I try my best with especially like our top tier advocates to remember the little details about the new puppy they just got and their kids just went into kindergarten, and kind of throw those in there again just to remind them you are a person, they are too. If you're too busy right now, that's cool. Just tell me. But if nothing else, it reminds them that you're there. Yeah,
exactly. Keeping it personal.
There's a few tools.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next up, Jillian from ACL. How often do you switch up engagement campaigns? So right now you touched on that a bit earlier, but
I did. But I think something else is kind of interesting. So with that challenge that we send out to our groups who are not engaged, fortunately, it'll only give that to them once, so they won't see it over and over again. But for that reason, since it's always somebody new seeing it, we've kept that same challenge for probably maybe even a year now, so that I don't switch up. But other than that, we probably try to do it 2 to 3 times a year where we have a really fun campaign. So in terms of something that would actually go out, get those customers, include a contest component, include some of those fun elements I talked to, we do 2 to 3 a year.
Okay, cool. Okay, so move on to the final couple of questions we have here. So from Shristi at ADP, do you have any strategies around engaging C-suite members? So I suppose you're paying special attention to, go ahead, say.
Yeah, C-suite is always a challenge because this is a group of people who does not want to waste their time. So a couple of things that we do around this. One is that we've tried to give them a very specific reason to come to our hub in the first place. So one example is we have a customer advisory board, and it's for VP level and C-level folks. And we put our registration for that event in our hub. So if somebody wants to come to that event, they have to go to the hub to do it. But what we've done is created a very specific experience for them so that when they enter it, they'll only see about 5 challenges. So 1, the actual registration. 2, some of the pre-work for the event. In our case, it's, tell us about some of the business challenges you're facing, any new product enhancements you're especially hoping for, that type of a thing. 1 about how the hub works and why you're there. And then a couple of other, just sort of, just a little taste of what's in the hub. So maybe an article, I think we did one about how you have difficult conversations with your employees and how you nurture leaders. So things that are very, very targeted to their level. We don't generally include a fun challenge for those folks just because, again, they don't want to waste time. So things that will be really impactful, even if it's not about data.com. Firing someone, nothing to do with data.com, but something that these folks might want to have to do it. So it's tricky. It's something that we still work on all the time. But I would say just give them a specific reason to go there that will help them with some of the waste.
Okay, great. And then finally we have Elizabetta from TakeTick asking, what's the best challenge to re-engage your advocates? There's even like one example of a specific challenge that really you could see made a huge difference, like a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. So I already mentioned, of course, the one that we send out to everybody, and then the sports example. Seriously, guys, I don't know what it is, but if you ask somebody to predict the outcome of a sports game, at least for us, it's fabulous. The other thing I would say is if it's advice that they would actually be able to give. So if it's somebody that's really important to engage, like it's one person, and maybe that phone call or email hasn't worked. You can ask them, like, hey, we know that you took on this use case of our product. How did you do that? And do something kind of specific to them. And I know I talked a lot about notifications. Just to clarify, because I did see a question come in, I'm talking about the email notifications. So, like, from the challenge, you can choose to send a notification from, in our case, we do it directly from me, but it's through the Influitive tool, and it goes to them. So anyway, so we would send a notification. I would personalize that so that they know it is just to them, and kind of do it that way. So I would say kind of those stuff like sports or where have you been? Those are great on a grand scale, but on a more specific basis, just something that's definitely targeted to them.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to bring up that question that Annie asked just to clarify, but you touched on it there, so that's great. I think just maybe the question that came in from Carrie about do you do a lot with segmenting or segmentation of challenges?
Yeah.
So I know you talked about your different levels and stuff you had earlier, like you obviously have to put a huge amount of time into working out, how long it's going to take an advocate to get from one level to another. Is it worth their time? That sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the biggest segmentation we do is the C level, like I mentioned. And then we also do some just in terms of like a starter versus an advanced level. So when somebody first comes to the hub, we want to really tailor that experience so that they don't feel terribly overwhelmed, and that they see really kind of the best challenges for someone getting started. So we do have a group there. They have maybe 10 challenges they can do, and then they unlock the next level to where they're an advanced member, and then they can see most things. We do a little bit of targeting in terms of like if we do product surveys, our product team might want to talk to somebody using a specific product or a specific size of company. Other than that, though, I would say the vast majority of our challenges are going out to that entire advanced group. So do I spend my whole day segmenting? Honestly, no. That might be kind of a next level thing for us, but we're not doing it now.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I think that's about it, I think, for questions. So we'll tie it up here, I suppose. Just for everyone, we will be adding the video to the community post so you can rewatch it at your leisure. And feel free to continue to ask questions in there and maybe spark some further valuable conversations between yourselves. So yeah, once again, Katie, I'd like to extend our thanks and appreciation for today and taking the time to do this. And also to everyone who's joined us and submitted questions. And speak again to you soon.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Sean, and thanks for listening, everybody. If anybody wants to connect on the community, I'm definitely out there or on LinkedIn. So hope to talk to you all soon.
Cool. Great. Thanks a lot, Katie.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.